we know that we're actually going to pick up a little while later this time.
Yeah.
In between seasons. So can you say anything about when the season begins? Where sort of not just Bellamy, but everyone's sort of head is at, because what happened was so heavy at the end of last season.
Yeah, I think that the time jump is somewhere around 3 months, something like that.
Yeah,
and there's been a period of relative peace. The people at Arcadia are starting to build their civilization, starting to build other little settlements within Arcadia and creating like a town, basically, with crops and stuff growing. There's Bellamy and the crew are kind of scouting the area and starting to map the area, as you do when you start playing Civilizations and you start exploring all those dark areas. So they're just kind of doing mapping runs and all that, and working on peace talks and relationships with the Grounders and the other clans there.
And of course, this is the 100, so there's got to be a new threat around the corner. We met this sort of AI at the end of last season, and while we don't know a lot yet, certainly the whole missile thing doesn't make it seem like it's great news.
No, not at all. She seems like quite a big threat, and that definitely develops a lot this season. There's also other threats and that are out there amongst the Grounders, and there's a whole heap that we've yet to meet. So the world starts to expand a lot more. But yeah, the threat that we see, that is hinted at the end of season 2. Mm-hmm. With the AI.
Yeah. I have to address the fact that your face, you've gone through a little bit.
Yeah. You just had a chemical peel. Went real bad.
Yeah, so unfortunate.
It will heal up, probably. Maybe.
Right.
See, yeah.
Well, it's like, it's funny because it is kind of par for the course on the 100, which is like your characters, they go through hell. Yeah. And I actually like, though it must suck for you as far as having to be in makeup a lot, I do like that people don't just instantly look better the next episode. So.
Yeah, well, some people tend to heal faster than others.
True.
I tend to hold on to injuries a lot longer than others.
Right.
So yeah, this is. I imagine this is going to be around for a lot longer because the show works. Like the first season was like 1 month.
Yeah.
And the second season was maybe 2. So yeah, things don't go away that quickly. So they hang around enough, and yes, there's like hours in makeup, but I think that adds to the at least creating the illusion of reality within the world. So yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Can you talk about Bellamy's sort of position this season? Because in the first season he was clearly sort of one of the leaders of the group, but then season 2 the whole dynamic was shook up because not only were a lot of your people in Mount Weather, but then everyone arrived from the Ark, and that sort of changed everything. So now that he's kind of returned, is he kind of finding his place now with the larger group?
I don't necessarily. I think that Bellamy turned his back on leadership at the end of season 1. Mm-hmm. Season 2, he spent a lot of time just trying to redeem himself for what he had done and dealing with the consequences of the culling and the 48 that were in Mountain Weather. They became his responsibility. So this season, I think that he's just trying to he's trying to learn how to become a better leader, but not necessarily taking a leadership position. Amongst the the group, like the adventure squad, like the younger crew, he's always always tries to step up and give direction or whatnot. But in the larger scheme of things, I don't think he plays a huge role in the political landscape. He's more of an enforcer, and that's his position. I think that his power as a leader was kind of stripped from him season 2, and it's not really a thing that he's searching for anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything you can say about sort of character dynamics for him this season, whether specific or maybe you might have to keep it a little vague, but are you kind of finding new pairings, sort of people he can team with and sort of bounce off of? Because last season, obviously, for a while, he was literally on his own in some air ducts.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was fun, like, crawling around on my own.
John McClane style.
Yeah. But this season, in terms of becoming an enforcer or, learning to be a good leader, he's definitely developing a relationship with Kane. Mm-hmm. But those dynamics there's always going to be one with Octavia, and that is playing out as we go along, as it always does. It's pretty tumultuous with brother and sister relationship, being the only siblings on from the Ark. You'll probably see a lot more interaction with Monty and a few other pairings amongst the group. But Yeah, I mean, those relationships get developed a fair bit, and then there's the introduction of some new characters that come along that play a huge role in the development of Bellamy this year, or this season.
Yeah, I was curious. Anything you could say about, say, like Michael Beach's character, who we know is from the arc?
Yeah, when Michael Beach comes along, he is like a kind of a big. There's a lot of I guess. I think that when his character does turn up, it would be easy to label him as a possible, balancing out like a good and evil between Kane and Pike. But I think that the important thing to remember when he turns up is to notice and to really think about the why of what he's doing. Because if it's simply black and white, then you'll miss out on a lot of the story. It's the grey area in which they're sitting that makes it interesting. So yeah, I don't think it's necessary. It's just kind of necessarily good and evil. It's just two sides of the same coin. And that grey area in which we're all sitting on the fence as to whether which way we should go. So I mean, this season, Bellamy's relationship, or I guess his character development, is very much in the grey area, and it's interesting for me to play.
Obviously, there's been a fascinating dynamic between Bellamy and Clark, and I think whether or not, some people obviously really want it to be a romantic one, but whatever it is, it's still just interesting to see how they've changed and grown, came to respect each other. But right now, do you think, are we going to get to see in any way sort of how they've developed parallels, whether they're on screen together or not?
I think Clark will continue on to be a leader, and Bellamy will continue to be an enforcer. He doesn't. Like I said, I think he has stepped quite a distance from being an actual leader to trying to understand what it means to be a leader. I think that, with the addition of Michael Beach and Ian Cusick, like they're leaders, and Bellamy's learning from both of them and trying to choose what is right or wrong and what's the best decision. So Clark is a leader, and Bellamy is an enforcer, and I think he's starting to I just think it's interesting what this show is saying about leadership, and whether you're doing it for the greater good, or to even be a leader on this show, it's the power of being able to make decisions and people to follow that. And it's funny to watch how a lot of the decisions that are made are just made in self-interest, and others are made for the greater good. And how that show depicts whether a decision, how the show depicts a decision made for everyone and a decision made for you based on how you feel about somebody. It's interesting to see where that goes. But I don't think that there's many parallels between Bellamy and Clark this season. I think, but to be honest, it's been such a complicated season in terms of story and structure, and all these different vignettes of story happening, that I haven't tracked Clark's story, or anyone's story that much. Actually, I've been just concentrating on my story because it is such a delicate kind of position he's in, and I want to be able to highlight the grey area and the good and bad of what he's doing, because it'd be easy to say that it's good or bad, and I want to be able to put in a performance where it makes people think about what the decision is actually being made, as opposed to being told that this is a bad one. To actually see him dealing with it and making a decision that, there's some sort of inference of what might be the right thing to do.
The show often is so interesting because it gives, it has these decisions people have to make that, there's never a right choice. It's kind of
but I always feel like the decisions made on this show are, if you're doing it out of love, then it doesn't matter how many people you kill. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but that's the I feel like I've been asking myself, what is the actual message and the sentiment of the show, and what is the bigger scope of what we're trying to say. And this season definitely brings forth questions that are important, I think, on a global scale, as opposed, about sustainability and what, how can the human race kind of survive on a planet that isn't equipped for that.
Right.
So I think that those questions are really interesting that the show brings up, more so than, Bellamy and Clark and, kind of things. So,